Hello and welcome to the High Stakes NASCAR Podcast. My name is Mike Bachmann. I am joined by my co-host, Zach Catanzareti. And this is a new podcast that Zach and I are putting together ahead of the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season, where we're going to be talking about all things NASCAR. And the name kind of speaks for itself because this is a high-stakes sport, and we're going to be talking about a lot of high-stakes narratives throughout the season this year. But Zach, I know we've been talking about this for a little while. Glad to finally get behind the mic with you, man. How you feeling heading into the season this year?
We're very privileged to have a very short off season. I've always felt that, you think of IndyCar especially, like they have 5 or 6 months to kind of rub their hands together and get ready for the next season. But NASCAR is just, we end it in, early to mid November. We got the holiday season right there, New Year's, Supercross starts up, the Rolex 24, Super Bowl. And then before we know it, it's the Clash, and then Daytona. It's just we don't have a lot of time to really think about what to look forward to. But very similar to other off seasons, there's a lot of storylines, and we're gonna break all of them down. But it's a lot to look forward to. It's a lot of anticipation. We have Daytona 500 Media Day, I believe tomorrow or Thursday. I believe tomorrow with qualifying on Wednesday. And you're going to hear the word excited a lot. That's what everyone says. It's a clean slate. Nobody has any. Well, now they have a lot of beefs from the Clash, but in terms of where they are in points, everyone's winless, and everyone knows anything's possible, especially for the Daytona 500.
Absolutely. And I feel like every year kind of coming, especially the last couple of years, I feel like it's always been like, this is the big year, right? I feel like it was kind of going into that last year. This year, I think there's certainly a lot of narrative that would coincide with that. And then, of course, going into 2025, I think 2025 could be huge with just the charter agreements, the potential to have some serious shakeups on the schedule. We have that this year, but I think that we could see potentially a lot more in 2025. And of course, we have a lot of drivers that could be heading out, retirement rumors and things like that. And I think, the foreshadowing of last year with Ryan Blaney and that championship with a lot of young drivers that are finally breaking out and, filling the shoes of the legends that they have. We have this almost changing of the guard finally that we've been waiting for the past couple of years. So it's great to see. I think the sport's in a really great time right now, especially with the release of Full Speed. It was just an incredible painting of the sport, kind of getting an inside look and more of the intimate side of what these drivers go through on a week-to-week basis, not only in the cockpit of the car, but what they deal with on the outside. And I hope that it really kind of opens up and, gives people that inside scoop that I think is really missing right now. So I'm excited, man. This is going to be a fun building project for the both of us. But let's not waste any time and get into some of these storylines. We'll kind of break down just the schedule of the show here today ahead of Daytona. We're recording this on Tuesday. We're going to talk about a couple of big picture storylines we're looking at for Cup in 2024, dig into some bold predictions for the upcoming season. We'll kind of take a little bit of a bridge break and incorporate some trivia entering the Daytona 500 every week. Zach and I are going to take a stab at this. Zach's on the spot this weekend for Daytona, so that should be pretty fun.
And I don't know what you're asking.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're asking.
Exactly. Full disclosure. I've not told Zach the nature of the trivia. We're going to keep each other honest and make sure that, we're not cheating at all. Right. So it's going to be fun to kind of test our knowledge and hopefully test yours as well. And then, like I had mentioned, going into a more preview of the 500, looking at drivers to watch. And then we will touch base on some fantasy and betting plays to close the show for the 500. So, Zach, I'll throw it to you, man, to give us the first storyline that you're watching this year. There's so many to choose from, but what is your eye going to be on for the 2024 Cup Series season?
Yeah, man. When we started talking about, storylines and what I said off the top, like there really are a lot to put your eye on. Like if you really want to pay attention to the sport and know what's coming and what is important to follow, it's overwhelming. Like, a few weeks ago, I made a list of drivers who pique my interest, who I'm looking at and going, let's see what they can do this year, whether it's, team wide, company wide, or if it's just a specific driver at a very unique portion in their career, in their life. And, a few that first came to mind, you think of a Ross Chastain of, where he goes after last year. He's really coming to terms with this team and what he can do. And we saw him make a lot of noise in 2022. And last year in 23, he had those peaks and valleys. He was away for a while and we didn't hear a lot about him. He didn't make it as far into the playoffs, but then he ends the year with a win. Really, where does he take that? And you think of a Bubba Wallace, who this is his 7th year in the sport now, and 6 straight years he's improved basically in every category. He didn't win last year, but if you look at the top 5s, look at the laps led, the average start, average finish, the DNF number was his lowest. Like, everything has improved basically every single year. And to do that 6 straight years, that says a lot. And that next step is going to be winning races consistently and top 5 not being a story. He just gets top 5s and nobody talks about it because it's not a story. I think that is possible, but you just never know when somebody hits that mark where they go, well, they can't do much else. Austin Cindric was one more. Is this his last year? Is this his final chance to be in the court of public opinion that he deserves to be in the Cup Series? We know, his father with the Cindrics and what they do with Team Penske, but he annihilated Xfinity for years. He was one bump and run away from winning 2 straight Xfinity titles and 12 wins. I mean, that's really tough to do. And he hit the Cup Series hard right away, but he's been really, really quiet since then. So just, it's really tough to kind of narrow down who to look at, but company wide, I really narrowed it down to Stewart-Haas Racing. Really fascinating driver lineup. You think of, Kevin Harvick on the way out and Josh Berry in. How will he perform in this rookie season? Really big shoes to fill. I mean, Harvick was the most, he was super competitive for decades. I mean, a really long career, and he won basically every race, won a title. And a lot of that came in that 4 car. And you think of Noah Gragson. I call him a rookie since he hasn't run a full season. He's been away for a while, so it's basically going to be like a brand new kind of starting point for him. Briscoe and Preece, we know how difficult it's been in their Cup careers, even for Preece back at JTG Doherty. It just hasn't been easy, and it's been a tough offseason for Stewart-Haas in terms of how people feel about them. You think about, it's been 8 years now with Ford, and you see how Team Penske has been performing. Front row, they've been winning here and there and making big strides, a lot of new sponsors for them. Where's Stewart-Haas been? And I will say, with that team, it was a fairly consistent season in terms of the whole organization. Usually Harvick is like steps and steps and steps ahead of his teammates, but this year it seemed to be a little more even across. I mean, Harvick, every single year from 2014 to 2022, he doubled the top 5s of all of his teammates combined. But this year it was far more even. And was that a reflection of where Kevin was in his career? Was that the overall decline of the company's competition? I don't know, but it was their first winless season ever since 2009, since they joined the series. And that's not a stat you want. And they're losing 2 veterans in Harvick and Eric Almirola. We know how much knowledge was there, and now that knowledge is gone. And I think Tony Stewart, he said it best, a few weeks ago. I have a couple quotes here. Everyone in that building, the Stewart-Haas building, understands what we've been doing the last 2 years isn't acceptable anymore. We're at the bottom of the barrel, and our performance is already in the tank. Unquote.
Wow.
That's wild. That's wild to hear that. I mean, you were talking from a 3-time title owner, like he's done it all, and he knows, what people are saying, and having, rookie drivers in there. And now, Preece has a lot of time behind the wheel, but just the numbers aren't there to call him the leader of a team, so that's really a team that I'm looking at. I love all the drivers. I love Gragson. I love, Barry and his unique kind of path to get to where he is. It's a miracle that he's in the Cup Series in a championship winning ride. It's for all the short trackers out there. It's a huge win. And Priest and Briscoe are two of the nicest guys I've ever had the chance to meet. So I hope them the best, but there's just so much noise from the outside.
No, there is a ton of noise. And I really like what you mentioned about Harvick and kind of, being that guy all those years, because Stuart Haas, I feel like, has been much of a top heavy organization when you look at Harvick and Rodney Childers, of course. And I mean, that 9-win season feels like an eternity ago at this point, right? But I really feel like, their decline has been in this next gen era. They just, whether they haven't really been able to figure it out, or it just has been, this gradual decline of talent, and the drivers, they have been taking longer to really kind of mold into who they truly are after annihilating through the Xfinity series. Because I mean, a lot of these guys, Chase Briscoe, Noah Gragson, like you mentioned, I mean, they were Xfinity series superstars.
Yeah.
And Josh Berry was extremely consistent as well, even though going winless last year in Xfinity, but still, his rise to Cup is definitely one for short trackers to continue to dream and never give up.
Yeah.
But I kind of do feel like there is a bit of a re-injection of life potentially in SHR. They've kind of had this little bit of a rebrand. You are losing your championship driver in Kevin Harvick, but in having a roster with Briscoe, Priest, Gragson, and Berry, like, it is going to be a little difficult, I think, to truly find that speed. But those words from Tony Stewart are, if they're not, they're very telling.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that, this team is not gonna be in the tank, I think, for long periods of time. Tony's just not that kind of guy, and I
Hmm.
hope to see some fire out of this Ford camp this year. Of course, with the new the Dark Horse Mustang, see how the performance of that kind of alters the perspective of where this team may go. But Stewart Haas Racing for sure is going to be, one of those teams that everybody's kind of looking at, because if they can't find speed, if they go winless again, if they don't have a driver in the playoff 16 when that regular season is over, the concerns are really going to start getting, that much more strong.
Yeah.
And who knows what the future of this organization is really going to look like. But you kind of look at the pipeline in Xfinity. Cole Custer's obviously there. Riley Herbst is obviously there.
Hmm.
And they had a ton of success at the end of that season, of course, with Custer winning the championship and then Herbst finally breaking out. So hopefully some of that good juju can translate to the Cup operation.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a little bit of a re-injection of life from a company perspective. Hopefully it just translates to results on the track. But a little bit of a transition into my first storyline that I'm following does surround one of those drivers in the Stewart Haas Racing stable. And I'm looking at the rookie class this year, because I feel like we've kind of, become a sport where these rookie classes the last couple of years have just been extremely dry. I mean,
Mm.
we've had a lot of talent coming through the ranks, but I feel like the fight for rookie of the year just hasn't really been there. And I feel like we've got a trio of drivers. There's 4 in the running. But I think we have a trio of drivers who are going to be extremely similar this year in the equipment that they're in. But the rookie class this year, Josh Berry, Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, and Kaz Grala is actually running for Rookie of the Year as well this year. And just a quick little synopsis of each, starting with Berry on the SHR train. I mean, he's the most seasoned rookie at
Yeah.
33 years old. And, he has 12 Cup starts to his credit. He had that runner-up finish last year with Hendrick at Richmond. Of course, his short track racing on display. And like I said, winless in Xfinity in 2023, but he's a formidable driver, and
Hmm.
he's got the best case scenario here. Again, the decline of SHR is apparent, but he's paired with championship winning crew chief and Rodney Childers. He's going to have more than likely the most resources at his disposal. And it's certainly the best case for Berry. And,
Hmm.
I do think that, I mean, look, I don't know what the expectation is for him this year, but I think that he has the potential to kind of hover around the playoff bubble. I mean,
Hmm.
that 4 car was right there last year. I know Berry is no Kevin Harvick, but still, you put him, who has a ton of experience, in this 4 car. I think that, eventually you'll see Berry have those flashes, and it will be a season of peaks and valleys. But I don't see why he can't be a 15th place car challenging for top tens, on a week to
Hmm.
week basis. You look at Carson Hocevar. I mean, Hocevar ascended to the upper echelon of the Truck Series last season, 4 wins. He too, with Cup Series experience, 5 top 20s last year when filling in
Crazy.
for
Yeah.
Legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Carson in the equipment and in the opportunities he has gotten he's really performed well. Even in Xfinity, in a couple of starts with Spire, he's shown a lot of really great speed. And I mean, he's got as much raw talent as anybody walking around the garage. Spire, unlike SHR, is a growing organization. They are
Yeah.
certainly trying to dip their head in the hat a little bit more. I just hope to see a little bit more maturity out of Carson. We know he can rattle the cage. We know that, he has caused a little bit of bad blood in the
Yeah.
Truck Series. He's made it a little bit more exciting, but, I think he will show that maturity and it will translate into solid finishes, while still tampering expectations in, probably a 15th to 20th place car. He showed he could do it in a Legacy MC Toyota when that team was out to lunch
Hmm.
last year. And Spire's got a lot of upside, not only with him, but with his teammate Zane Smith, who has the partnership with Trackhouse, will eventually probably be taking a Trackhouse seat. Daniel Suarez, that seat's probably a little bit hot. So we'll
Hmm.
see kind of what the trajectory of his Cup Series career looks like. But Smith, too, 7 Cup Series races last year, had a top 10 at Charlotte, running for front row. He's a Truck Series champion. He's been one of the most talked about young and up and coming drivers over the last couple of years. And he's always elevated his teams. He's always made them better. You expect the same here with Spire. And look, the fact that all 3 of these guys do have Cup Series experience, I think makes this rookie class that much more compelling and that much more fun.
Hmm.
So I hope these guys, kind of put on a show for us because we want to see these rookies compete and we want to see a
Yeah.
tight rookie battle. That's something that I think has certainly been lost. But I'm excited to see what these three guys can do. And, not to discredit Kaz Grala, but in the equipment that he's in, I think it's going to be difficult to really challenge, with these guys and kind of throw his name there in the Rookie of the Year hat. But of these 3, who are you looking at to kind of really make noise?
Of those 4, I would definitely pick Barry. I feel like where that team, they're on the decline, but just where they are, they're still pretty far above Spire. You think of what, LaJoy and what certain people have done, and they 100% they're on the incline straight up. And how they've dedicated themselves to NASCAR overall. We know, they took over Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series, and they have a lot of young drivers there. Guaranteed they're going to be running for the title there, and that's going to be huge for them. Because if you just jump straight into Cup, years ago, it was what 5-6 years ago, and they won Daytona with Justin Haley in the craziest circumstances in 2019. But it's been a really tough uphill road. But just the path that they've done has really been interesting because it feels like they've been just taking over in a certain way. Competitively they're not there, but just as you said, these are 2 of the hottest young and up and coming drivers in the sport right now. And they got them. They got Hocevar and they got Zane Smith, and Zane's a champion. I think if Carson spent 1 more year in trucks, he probably would have been a champ. It's just the maturity side of him that, anytime he would win, the couple weeks later he would be, taking somebody out or just losing his temper or something. And you're like, damn, dude, if you just keep it inside, you got a lot of fire and people love that. And we saw that with Noah Gragson, and we're probably still going to see it from him this year. But what would you rather want? I guess I can ask you this, Mike. Would you rather have a driver who's super vanilla, got a lot of those guys, don't say a whole lot, they never get pissed off or angry, and they go out there and they run top 5, top 10, or you got a Carson or a Noah who win a bunch of races, but they're also getting embroiled in some controversy here and there? I mean, what's better for the team overall? What would you think?
Well, that's an interesting point. What's better for the team? I mean, what's better for the team is probably option A. Because if you have a driver who is, kind of closed off, he's not necessarily, he's putting the results on track, but certainly kind of staying true to himself. The team doesn't want to be in hot water, and obviously sponsorship is everything. So you want to ensure that these guys are on their best behavior. But I agree with you, man. I mean, that's why I loved Full Speed so much, because you get more of an inside look into what these, how these guys what these guys think on a week to week basis. And me personally, I want the driver that's going to stir up controversy. I want the driver that's not afraid to take chances, because you are in the NASCAR Cup Series. This is the most competitive form of stock car racing out there, and these are the best drivers in the country. And winning, especially in today's NASCAR, is extremely difficult, and it's
Yeah.
everything. Knowing what it takes to win the championship. So I want a driver who's not afraid to take risks. I want a driver who is not afraid to say what's on his mind. I know that there's implications to that, but I'm not a team owner. I'm a
Yeah.
fan, and I'm somebody, as a fan, I want to see that. I feel like a lot of these young drivers, they are groomed to say the right thing, right? And I feel like the personality aspect of what these guys truly race for is just a lost, because there is so much more I feel like we could learn just about the direction of where these guys take every single race, based on what they say, and obviously it's translated on the track. But that's why I like Carson. That's
Yeah.
why that's why he has made a name for himself, and he's skipping
Yeah.
Xfinity entirely. I mean, Zane Smith as well.
Hmm.
But you need a driver who's not afraid to take those risks, because that's where championships are won. I mean, look at Ross Chastain.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
hail melon, just pulling it out of his rear end. It's no, who else would have ever thought in their right mind to do that?
Yeah.
And Ross is one of those guys, and that's how he's been able to be successful. I know that he's not making any friends out there, but you're not out there to make friends. You're out there to take home checkered flags.
Yeah.
So for me
And,
personally, that's what I want to see.
and it's all about team culture, right? Like, Justin Marks, Trackhouse team owner for Ross, he was on Full Speed quite a lot, and he's just hanging back in his chair, and he's like, you know what? This is what I like to see out of our drivers. This is exactly why we pick Ross, because not only does he have that ability on the track, he tears up cars here and there, especially on his road up to Cup, but he also got the results. He got the best out of every single team he raced for. Back at BKR and trucks over 10 years ago, all the way through all the small teams. You think of JD Motorsports and Xfinity, that bright red number 4 car, couldn't miss it. Like, he was always given the best for his equipment, and he also made the headlines, and not always bad ways. Like, just you think of the culture of just the sport overall, they like guys who are fiery, who hate to lose. They
Yeah.
hate finishing second. Kyle Busch, his whole career has been getting mad over finishing second. Like, he just wants to win and nothing else. And that resonates with people who are watching at home. So Ross has found a great home with Trackhouse, and I think Spire potentially could be that home for Carson. I don't think his career is going to end there. I think this is just the start for him. But you got to have that team behind you to get behind you from the start and understand who you are, and not back off and go, oh, we can't have this baggage.
Yeah. Drivers have to be able to be themselves, because
Yeah.
when you are, I think that just inherently makes them better, especially on the track. But good stuff there, Zach. What's another storyline you're looking at before the 2024 season kicks off?
Yeah, as I said, I love drivers. I love following the drivers. There's obviously a whole business side and various other aspects you can look at, but I love seeing how drivers perform and their racecraft. And going off of Stuart Haas, I got to look at Hendrick Motorsports. It was a tale of 2 seasons, really. I mean, you think of what Byron was able to do, an astonishing season. A lot of people saw that when he had the one of the best truck seasons we ever saw, many years ago now. He turned that into an Xfinity title, and then straight into Cup. It was like, K&N E Series, Trucks, Xfinity, Cup, bam, bam, bam. And we've seen very few drivers pull that off. And it was a really tough start for him. But, give him enough years, and he's the winningest driver in the sport. 6 wins, really tough to do that, particularly with just a handful of years underneath you. He killed it. Larson, he's so inconsistent. He always has been. But when he doesn't get caught up in an incident, he's winning or he's contending for the win. He's in, like, anytime we have a crazy finish, particularly him and Denny Hamlin, he's always involved in it. And yeah, he's one of the greatest racers on the planet right now. It doesn't matter what series you're looking at. And I know we're going to talk about the double and all that. He's just he's amazing.
Yeah.
But then you look at the other side. You got Byron Larson, and then you got Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott, who they're coming off really difficult seasons in very different ways. They both had their injuries. They both missed a number of races, and neither of them were really able to come back and compete to their usual standards. And I was really concerned for a bit. We all thought Chase was going to point his way into probably not point, but win his way into the playoffs. And that wasn't able to happen, of course. But Kyle Petty on the NASCAR and NBC podcast last year, at some point, because you always asked about Chase, right? The entire fall is Chase going to make it? What's he going to do this week? What's wrong with Chase? And, Kyle just says, listen, everybody, what's wrong with Chase? Everybody has an off year, all right? Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Jeff Gordon, they've all had an off year. It wasn't his year this year. And given the circumstances, I did wonder, because it was an injury. It wasn't just him just being off. But hearing that did put me at ease a little bit, because, despite, if you look at the tail end of 2022, he did make the championship 4, and, the early summer following his injury, he had a run of top 5s and a lot of stage points, this year. But just during the summer and into the fall, it fell off, and he had to do a lot under those circumstances, and it just didn't quite happen there. And Bowman as well, he started the year off really well, and he was nowhere to be seen after that back injury. So they're both there. I feel I have a lot more interest in Chase. I feel like he's more capable. We've seen him win titles in many races, most years. He's had double-digit top 5s every season except last year, and Bowman just isn't at that mark yet. So a fresh start is what they're getting here at Daytona, and we know that Chase has had his run-ins at Daytona. He's come close before, and maybe that they just need a fresh start. They got two of the most competitive teammates you can ask for, and we'll see what they can do. But right now, off of last year, I really don't know what to think about that team. It's going to be fascinating to see where they go from here.
Yeah, it's crazy to say the premier organization, you have no idea what to expect, right? But it was a tale of two seasons for them, because you had Larson and Byron, perennial championship contenders. And then, like you said, the injuries just plaguing Chase and Bowman's stock, and they weren't the same when they come back. But a fresh start for both of them, I think is important. And everything is going to be about Chase this year. Can he get back to victory lane? Can he reinsert himself in the playoff conversation, and more importantly, the championship conversation? And the bigger thing with Chase, with me, is I think that there's just so many more variables at play, especially when you take a look at atop the pit box with Alan Gustafson. I feel like Alan Gustafson is one of the more questionable crew chiefs in the garage. I just feel like more times than not, the decisions that the team has made has kind of put Chase in a little bit of a precarious position in terms of how the race unfolds. I don't think it's all Chase. I think that there are some bigger issues with the team itself. And look, I think it's going to be a big year for Allen if he can kind of help his driver get back to the level that we know he's capable of. And hopefully they can minimize some of those mistakes to, put Chase back in victory lane. As far as Bowman, I really don't know what to expect for that number 48 team. I believe he's in a contract year this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Might be right.
So he's got that pressure, because
Yeah.
that 48 car it's a top ride, and it could be available. So I think there could be additional pressure there for Alex to really kind of come through. Daytona presents a great opportunity. What's he going for? 7 straight front row starts
7 straight
in the 500, which is just ridiculous.
He doesn't have 7. He doesn't have 6 straight top 2 finishes.
No, exactly.
And that's more. That pays more.
Yeah, that would pay more, especially if he's able to win one of these. But nonetheless, he's shown speed. he's had the consistency. He just doesn't have the hardware to show for it. And I don't know, man. Like, as I sit here right now, I don't expect him to make the playoffs. I think that there are better cases for other drivers, especially as we were kind of able to see it last year. And look, the field is that much more close. And I'm just not, I don't know. Alex just doesn't do it for me this year. But Chase,
Yeah.
definitely interested in. I mean, look, NASCAR's got their golden boy back. You know that they're going to want to see him up front and see him back
Hmm.
in victory lane. It would be a great thing. But certainly Larson, Byron, going to be championship favorites once again this year, and hopefully, we can kind of see a little bit of a rebound from the other two in Chase and Bowman. But with Larson specifically, you mentioned the double. That is my second storyline that I'm going to be looking at, because in the grand scheme of motorsports and racing, this is huge. He's gonna attempt to become the first driver since Kurt Busch almost 10 years ago to run both the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. I mean, he's got a great setup with Arrow McLaren on the IndyCar side of things, and then of course Hendrick Motorsports with NASCAR. And look, if anybody could pull this off, it's
Yeah.
Kyle. It really is. He's arguably the most talented race car driver in the world, like you said. And, Tony Stewart had a lot of success in his couple of tries that he did here. And Larson, the comparisons to Tony, very valid, just the way that they kind of grew up and just how talented they are at virtually any type of race car that they jump in. This is going to be awesome. If Larson can make the show, and look, I'm not. I mean, I am a betting man,
Yeah.
but I don't know what Larson's number is going to look like once the Indy 500 kind of turns around and we're into May. But I'm going to be very interested because, like I said, if there's anybody that could come in and do this, I really think it's Larson. And I mean,
Mhm.
look, he's won at Charlotte before. His intermediate strength in NASCAR is I mean, it's top tier.
Yeah.
So he's naturally going to be one of the favorites in Charlotte. But we want to see these crossovers, especially with NASCAR's best. And Kyle Larson is the best year after year from a talent perspective. And it's gonna be really exciting to see Young Money try and pull this off. But
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be big for not only NASCAR but for IndyCar, and who knows what this could potentially open up for the two organizations kind of going forward. I think it would be great to see more crossovers between IndyCar and NASCAR. Just
Hmm.
being Americans' premier motorsports, I certainly would love to see that. So hopefully
Yeah.
Larson kind of bridge the gap a little bit with top tier performance in the 500, and then coming back to Charlotte and running the 600 miles. But should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think, I think it's our best chance to see somebody win both, frankly. I mean, I know he doesn't have that open wheel experience. We've been seeing him test here and there. He was just at Phoenix, I think, over the weekend or last week. And just where McLaren is, you think of how close they come, at least these last couple of years with Patricio Award and even Rosenquist. Like
Yeah.
they really bring fast horses to Indy every year. And I go back to Kurt. He was at a different point in his career, right? Like he was just coming off of Furniture Row, racing the year prior to that. That was his first year with Stuart Haas. The team won the title that year, but that was his first year, with that type of equipment. And he only had that one cup win that year. But Andretti, they were killing it, at least at the time. But I feel like where Larson is in his career right now, he's the hottest shoe that we have. And as you said, he's won Charlotte before. He's just at the peak of his ability and his racecraft and his physicality, just what he gets out of that car. I think this is our best chance to see somebody actually win both, or maybe break Stewart's record, which I think was what it was third at the Coke 600 and sixth at Indy, I think, in 2001,
Yeah.
which is astonishing. I think, we can totally get him in the top five in both races, but Indy, of course, is just the biggest unknown for him because he's never done anything like that. He's never done a three wide start in the turn one with the live action pit stops and the little rear wing changes you make at 240. Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a wild feat. But you saw what, Fernando Alonso, what he did years ago. Of course, he's not from the NASCAR side, but just somebody coming in from a different discipline and doing it as well as he did. And Kurt did amazing. Um, and I will definitely agree that I love when IndyCar guys come to NASCAR and NASCAR go to IndyCar. I love when Formula One guys come over, like Jensen Button and Raikkonen a little bit. Um, Guys from Hollywood, like Frankie Muniz. Like, I just love when people kind of mix in and we get a fascinating field. But I'm hoping Santino Ferrucci and Sage Karam, they've shown that potential to actually bring cars home in solid position. Sage nearly won Road America in Xfinity last year, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of talents out there that they shouldn't be tied down to what series they're in, because they can achieve incredible things.
Yeah, and Sage has an interesting ride with Sam Hunt this year in
Yeah,
Xfinity. So,
yeah,
we'll kind of see what he's able to do, and Ferrucci too, really talented driver who always shows up at Indy. So yeah, should be a lot of fun. But I think you're right. Probably presents our best chance here, Larson. So hopefully he can deliver. But good stuff there. Let's now just run through quickly some of our bold predictions for 2024. I'll kick us off here. And look, this might not be as bold as it should be. I know kind of everybody's on the same train here, but I'm looking at RFK, man. I think both drivers get multiple wins this year. And I think more than anything, this team reinserts itself as a tier one team in Cup.
hmm
I mean, Chris Buescher last year was the surprise of 2023, winning 3 races on multiple track types. Had the round of 8 appearance. I mean, that was like the most unlikely breakout. I feel like
yeah,
he showed what he could do the previous year in 22, but to come out and win 3 races and make the round of 8, and look, there was a point in time last season where Chris Buescher was potentially a championship 4 threat, just because of his consistency and again those wins. On multiple track types, that's huge. So he's extremely versatile, but he's one of those quiet guys. You just don't expect that out of
don't,
Chris Buescher,
yeah,
right? But all eyes are on Brad Kay. He has to break through this year. I feel like he just has to. It's been a long time coming. He hasn't won since 2021. So now 3 years removed from his last race win. And, this team has a lot of strengths. Short tracks and super speedways have been their strong suit. And with Keselowski, he's still got the talent. He's still a top tier caliber driver. And look, his results were much comparable to Buescher. He just didn't have the wins.
hmm
So I just don't see a reason where Keselowski can't replicate what Buescher did. And we talked about the decline of Stewart Haas. You look at Hendrick, you look at Joe Gibbs as those tier one teams. I mean, I feel like RFK is going to reinsert their name here,
yeah,
especially if both of those drivers are able to make the playoffs again, have multiple wins to their credit. It's going to be big. And, RFK continues to grow. They're going to have a part-time entry as well this year. And, Keselowski is, he's an innovative guy who brings a
hmm
lot of knowledge to the sport. So he knows how to get it done. And you just look at the growth that this team has had ever since
yeah,
he dipped his hat into ownership. Year after year after year has been tangible progress. Hopefully Keselowski just finally is able to get some himself, because I want to see him back in victory lane. And I think RFK is going to be a beast this year.
yeah. And I think RFK shows that Stewart Haas Racing, it's okay. It's a completely different company, completely different work mindset and different people. But I think when you look at where they were, especially in the mid 2010s, like 13, 14, 15, through Stenhouse, they lost Kenseth, they lost Edwards, they lost Biffle, and just what came in after that. I mean, we just saw them struggle tremendously. Every year was a mini reset, it felt. And, Greg Biffle, he mentioned it, I think last year with Dale Jr., like just technologically, they fell so far behind. Aerodynamics, especially, was one area that they struggled in. But you mentioned it, with Brad coming on board a couple years ago, right in line with the next gen car, Buescher maturing on the track and off with his ability. It was a great position, and Brad and Chris are certainly both going to win races. I mean, we talk bold predictions. I have the same prediction. I see both RFK cars making the final 4. I really think they're
Oh,
capable.
you turning it up a notch a little bit,
Straight up.
though.
I
I
had it
love it.
before. I had it before we came on. I
I love
totally
it.
see it happening. They're experienced enough, and the cars are there, and they're really good at all types of tracks. Brad didn't win, but anytime Chris won, Brad was also up front. Like, he always had that um that difficult mentality after the race, because he's like, man, I could have won. Chris won. It's a win for the team, but he was also balancing a disappointment because it could have been him. And they were always near each other in points, and they always qualified near each other. It was just executing at the end that kind of went Chris's way, and that showed what Chris can do. He never won multiple races in a year, and he won back to back at one point. It was incredible. So for Brad, it's really important for him to win. I think for 3 straight years for his teammate to outwin him would be tricky just from the outside looking in. Um, and I sat down with him in his motorhome last year at some point, and he didn't hide the fact like how big it would be to be in victory lane with Jack Roush. Um, Jack giving him that opportunity and bringing the famed number 6 back to victory lane. They did it in a duel a couple years ago, but to do it, when all the money is on the line, it's bucket list item number 1 for him, and it can easily happen at Daytona.
Yeah.
I think it's easily going to happen. That's a very lukewarm prediction because Roush hasn't won a lot of 500s. They've only done it twice, both with Kenseth, well over 10 years ago. But whether it's Chris or Brad, hell, even David Reagan, he's
Yeah.
coming back in the number 60, which is something I never saw coming. When he left Roush a long time ago, I didn't think he was going back, and here he is. He's back in the 60, and of course he nearly won it in 2011. Even with Rick Ware, these last couple years, he's gotten top tens. It doesn't matter what he's in; he's got that eye for feeling where to put your car. So it can happen right away here at Daytona for RFK.
Yeah, yeah. Keselowski's certainly one of the favorites, and I mean, going 1-2 last year in the summer race was
Yeah.
big. So these guys, they know how to find each other and they know how to work together, and we know those blue ovals are fast at Daytona. So yeah, I love it. Championship 4 for Kez and Busher. Yeah, I love it. That's
Yeah.
that's that's bold. So you take it up a notch. But I'm gonna stick with the championship because I'm going to put my championship pick out there. I just have a gut feeling that this driver is going to come back with a serious vengeance in 2024. My championship pick is Joey Logano. I think he's going to get his 3rd championship, and I think he's going to come back, and I think he's due for a 4-win season this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year it was a bit of a lost cause, yes. But look, I look at the last time this number 22 team severely underperformed back in 2017 when they completely missed the playoffs in its entirety. He goes on and he wins the championship the following year. And look, his statistical numbers last year were pretty on par with his championship run in 2022. When you take a look at top 5s, top 10s, obviously the wins weren't there, but he had a significant drop off in laps led. Like, this 22 car just was not up front. So I feel like, week to week, it was almost like a game of catch up a little bit. And we know Penske's fast. I mean, Ryan Blaney's late season surge to win the
Mm-hmm.
championship was strong. I know that you mentioned Austin Cindric earlier, see what he could do potentially this year. But Logano's one of those guys where failure fuels passion. And,
Totally. Yeah.
again, you look at this new Ford Dark Horse Mustang, it might take a little while for them to really figure it out, but I think Logano's going to be a force this year. I don't think that, we're going to see back-to-back seasons where he's underperforming. I just don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's in Joey's nature, especially with Blaney winning the championship. And now it's kind of like, well, the gap could start to be closing a little bit between Blaney and Logano in terms of, who is the lead driver over there at Penske. Logano still wants to be the guy. And, he's entering, I believe, his age 34 season. He might not be that old yet, but still,
He'll be 34 in May.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So his age 34 season, which is crazy.
Is
He still feels so young to me, honestly.
19 or something.
Yeah, right. But nonetheless, I'm picking Logano to win the title. He's 11-1 on DraftKings to win the championship, and I think he's going to come out swinging. I think 4 wins is on the table for that number 22.
Yeah, I see that in him because I remember 2017, and I think when he missed the playoffs at Richmond, I asked him a question in the press conference. He's like, "So what do you do from here? Yeah, you missed the playoffs, but how much are you looking forward to the rest of the year to build for 2018?" And he's like, "We missed the playoffs. That's it. Nothing else matters." I'm like, that to me really showed where his head is and how much he probably really did dial in for 2018 to give it to him even harder. And I think the team overall made a lot of strides, around that time. And that's just always how he's been. It's either win or bust. And he, as you said, he wants to be that lead driver. Um, I think even when Brad was at the team, Joey joined the following year after Brad won the title. They switched from Dodge to Ford from 2012 to 2013. And, he wasn't a big winner right off the bat, but Brad wasn't a big winner in 2013 either. It was 2014 was when they both really took off nearly at the same time and won numerous races for a number of years. And Joey won a Daytona 500. He won, All-Star race. He won now multiple titles. And now Ryan is now hitting that type of stride. And, Cindric's not there, but I think those two head to head, it could be just, times two from what we saw with Brad and Joey. And now Joey's in that age of where Brad was. And, what can he do? Can he do what he's done multiple times and come back from a disappointing year? And, it wasn't a bad year by any means, but it just wasn't what we usually come to expect from him. He's tremendous in that playoff grid, and I had him making the championship for this past year. I had Ryan missing the opening round of 16, and Joey making it to Phoenix, and flip flop that. And
Yeah.
that's just one of those teams. They have off years, but then they also kill it when the time comes. And this would be 3 straight titles for Penske, which is incredible since they really struggled to win championships for decades and decades. So I understand that one, but I think on the spot, if I'm thinking of a championship favorite or who I think could win it, probably be Denny Hamlin. I've picked him a number of years. I think everybody has because we know he's there, but just something happens. And I think where he is now mentally, like he's the leader of the sport in my eyes. Just how he speaks, what he does on Actions Detrimental, his podcast. I love how he talks. I love how he talks about drivers. He says names. He brings up specific stories. He gets really pissed off. NASCAR finds him. It's just like things actually happen with him. I love how he talks, and he's at that age or that point in his career where he's going to say what he wants, and he goes to the track. And we've just seen a lot of fire from him these past couple years, especially. And when he's down and dirty and he's going for a win, you just see anything happen. And he gets the fans all fired up, and sometimes that gets to you've seen it get to some guys before, but I think that just fuels him. Kyle Busch, like that type of energy. And I think this could be his year. He just has to put the whole season, particularly the playoffs, together and just stay out of trouble, and he can get it. But it's a wide range of guys who can win the title. It's really tough to pick one.
It is. Denny, I beat your favorite driver, Hamlin. But you're right,
Not
dude.
anymore.
Like, yeah, not anymore. But look, that's a great point you make about like, he is the face and he moves the needle. And like you said, the way he talks, the way he approaches the race weekend, it's something to respect. And I'm gonna cite Full Speed again, but after that, I gained such an appreciation for Denny Hamlin after that and such a respect for him, honestly. Like, you just get more of that insight into what he's actually thinking. And like, if I'm a driver, I want to think the exact same way that he is. And he's not afraid, and he has certainly taken that villain-esque persona in the Cup Series, and we need that. And I think he's just the perfect guy for that because he likes to run his mouth, and he's not afraid to. So we've been waiting for the year. We've been waiting for the elusive Denny Hamlin championship. The door is certainly closing as he continues to, get up there in age, and, the responsibilities over at 2311 as an owner, that kind of, takes away a little bit from what you're doing on the racetrack. But Denny's going to be a perennial contender once again. And, I think we'll certainly see his name over there in Phoenix. But hopefully in the battle between Logano and Hamlin, it's
Damn good
Logano
battle.
there. It would be a damn
Got
good
my
battle.
interest. Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely have my popcorn for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all good. Zach, do you have one more bold prediction, or is it time to test your Daytona 500 knowledge?
I think that was it. I think my bold prediction was that I'm gonna pass this test.
All right. Well, we're gonna start off easy. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. But we're heading to the Daytona 500 this year. And like I said, Zach and I are going to take stabs at this every single week. Some race trivia and test your knowledge as well. For what you might know and what you might not know. But Zach, we are going to start off easy. We're going to break the ice a little bit here. All I need you to do, and there's no time limit. It could be fun to potentially get a clock in here at some point as we kind of build this and really put ourselves on the spot. We'll start off easy. We'll start off pretty light here. I need you to name me the last 10 Daytona 500 winners.
Okay. 2023, Stenhouse. 2022, yes. Austin Cindric. Yep. 21, Michael McDowell. Yep. 2020 and 2019, Denny Hamlin.
Back to back.
2018, Austin Dillon.
Bang.
2017, Kurt Busch. 2016, Denny Hamlin.
Bang.
2015, Joey Logano. 2014, Dale Jr., if that's the...
That is, I mean, you could keep going because that obviously was...
Let me keep going.
Just keep going. Keep going. Just keep going.
2014, Dale Jr., Hendrick's last Daytona 500, shockingly. 2013, Jimmy Johnson. 2012, Matt Kenseth. 2011, Trevor Bayne. 2010, Jamie McMurray. 2009, Matt Kenseth. 2008, Ryan Newman. 07, Kevin Harvick. 06, Jimmy Johnson. 05, Jeff Gordon. 04, Dale Jr. 03, Michael Waltrip. 2002, Ward Burton. 2001, Michael Waltrip. 2000, Dale Jarrett. 1999. Did Dale Jarrett went back-to-back? Or was that Gordon? I think Gordon went back-to-back in 99 and 98. Oh, no. 98 was Dale Sr.
Yeah.
So 99 was Gordon, 98 Dale Sr., 97 Gordon.
Yep.
96 Dale Jarrett.
Yeah.
I think 95 and 94 was Sterling Marlin.
Yes.
93 Dale Jarrett.
Yep.
Ned Jarrett was in the booth for that. 92 1992. Damn. I'm surprised I made it this far, really.
Dude, 30 years? That's
pretty good. I knew the 90s were going to get me.
Yeah.
I don't think Davey Allison won it that year.
Yes, he did. He
92?
won 92, yeah.
91. I wish I could skip to 1989 with Dale Waltrip.
Yeah.
91.
Were interesting in between.
Derek Cope was 1990.
Correct, yeah.
Dale Waltrip was 89, but I'm skipping over 91.
91 was Ernie Irvan.
Ernie Irvan. Yeah, I wasn't going to get that. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Obviously, I need to be more aggressive with my questions because that was way too easy.
The last 10, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you aced it. So that wasn't a terribly bold prediction on your end, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Made it. You made it. Wow, that was impressive.
If you said the last 35, I would have been in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 was a cakewalk. But good stuff nonetheless. We'll keep doing this, and now I obviously have to follow up next week. I've got some big shoes to fill after that one.
Saying the last 10 Atlanta winners, that's a little trickier.
Yeah,
it kind of hits your mind right away. So I'll shake it up. I'll do something that's not too difficult. I can't name Atlanta winners. kind of random.
That was poor planning on my part. I should have
Right.
known better. I should have given you some more respect there. So that's
You're
on
good.
me. I put my hand up.
You're good, bro.
But
Episode 1.
episode exactly episode 1. We're working. But let's now talk about the Daytona 500 because in case you didn't know, the Daytona 500 is this weekend.
Yeah.
And we got cars on the track for the first time in 2024. So we're just going to focus on a couple of key plays here. We're going to give our drivers to watch. We're going to give our fantasy play, our top fantasy play for this week. And we're going to give our favorite Daytona 500 bet as well to wrap up shop here. But in starting with drivers to watch, there's a number to look at. The guy that I am looking at closely this year is Kyle Busch.
Hmm.
Now, Kyle Busch last year came so close. He was there leading at the end before that overtime restart, and then unfortunately got clipped into the retaining wall. But
He led the 500-mile mark, and
he
he'll remind
did.
you of that.
Yeah, he will. In case you haven't heard it, Kyle Busch led lap 200 and wishes it was 1998.
Yes.
But anyway, he's I mean, Kyle Busch last year, dude, I feel like his season was a bit of a it left a lot to be desired. Like there was
Yeah.
so much hype around him coming to RCR and RCR kind of re-injecting this life and energy into them. And, you know, he won at Fontana, had the win at Gateway, and then he went at Dega?
Talladega.
He won at Dega. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it was the most not talked about. Like Fontana's different. It was his first win, but I feel like the wins at Gateway and Talladega were just like, yeah,
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
he, he kind of won, and then he kind of just fell off at the playoffs, and gets eliminated there early. But the biggest thing about Kyle Busch, his Hall of Fame career, he has yet to win the Daytona 500, and he's shown speed. RCR, they've shown speed. I mean, Austin Dillon, like you said, they won it a couple of years ago. A little different outcome there. Austin had a little help
Sure.
there with his bumper, but
Yeah.
a win is a win. And Kyle Busch, I feel like he just I feel like he's going to be in position.
Mhm.
And he's as hungry as any driver in the field to win this. I think that he's going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to come back and put together more consistent results and really find that speed. I'm going to be watching him trying to work his way through the pack here, see if he could finally break through. And hopefully at lap 200, this race ends. And he's the one that can finally cross the line when it's all said and done. But there's so many drivers. We mentioned Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., whose name might come up in a little bit as well. Kyle Busch, I mean, of those three, I think is the most notable. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, all three of those guys more than likely
Mhm.
going to be Hall of Famers. But Kyle Busch, just with all of the hardware, all of the success that he has, this is the one hole on his resume. And 2024 could be a good spot for him. But I'm certainly going to be watching him because he's going to be as hungry as anybody to try and park that 8 car in victory lane. And it'd be cool to see the 8 car back in victory lane at Daytona. I know
Yeah.
it's not
Right.
Junior, but Kyle Busch. I mean, I love Kyle Busch. I'm certainly a fan of him, and
Mhm.
I want to see him get his 500 because he's the guy. He's far and away the most successful driver currently who's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and to finally get that 500 would be pretty special.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's really important to start the year off strong for Kyle. He did that last year, really loud to start the year, but that's where all of his wins came. All three of his wins came in the first half of the year, and after that, he wasn't able to tie down his results, and we just saw him drift quietly into 14th in the standings. That was his worst finish in nearly 20 years in the Cup level, and it was his lowest laps led ever in his career. And you look at numbers like that, and it kind of makes you worry a little bit, just season wide. And not seeing him mentioned in Full Speed on Netflix,
I was
that was
so
weird.
disappointed, man.
That was
I
weird.
I
Yeah.
wanted Kyle Busch sound bites so bad.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm sure I don't know if he just didn't open up to them. Some drivers didn't want to let Netflix and that access in, but his charisma and his on-track prowess, it would have been killer, but it made sense because he wasn't a story in the playoffs,
Yeah.
Like if he was able to win the Roval, he was right up there to advance in, they probably would have had him in the whole time, but he just wasn't part of that storyline they were looking at. But for Daytona, I mean, he can definitely be a big story. He's probably not the number one on my list. I probably look at Ryan Blaney,
Mm,
who's he's a two-time runner-up. He's come literally as close as you can to winning it. His teammate, he had that finish in 22 and 2017 and 2020. He was second in very different ways, but he's tremendous. He's won Talladega. He knows how to come from behind and get it done. He knows how to dominate and get it done. He knows how to avoid the wrecks and get it done. He knows how to win titles, and he just has to hope Joey isn't around him. I feel like he's not a teammate guy.
yeah.
That can maybe spiral out of control like it did with Brad that one year. But no, he has all. It's not even for potential anymore. Like I know he can do it. It just
Yeah.
hasn't happened for him yet. But you said, Kyle, like he's done it 18, 19 times. Truex has done it, and many other drivers. Stewart never won it. Some guys, it doesn't matter how good you are, how many times you win the July race, how many times you win Dega and the Clash, back when it was at Daytona. You just can't win the 500. I can't think of any drivers who win Daytona 500s a lot, but they don't win the other races. Like it's always, Denny's won 3, but he's won Dega many times. And Keselowski, he hasn't won the 500. There's such a long list, and some guys just never get it done. I just think Blaney, his time's going to come, and it'll probably happen this year, I think.
Yeah, it would be awesome to see him get that, especially after winning the championship. I mean, you start your year with a 500, and Blaney is as good as anybody on these super speedways. Even if, I feel like the majority of his wins have come within like, a couple hundredths of the next guy,
Yeah.
But still, like, that he's going to carry a lot of that momentum into this year, is going to want to avoid the championship hangover. And again, just show that his late season surge last year was no fluke. I feel like throughout the entire regular season last year, he really wasn't talked about for the results he was putting on track. Showed consistency for sure,
Yeah.
but was never really in the conversation with, a William Byron or a Denny Hamlin or a Kyle Larson, right? So I think Ryan's going to certainly want to keep his name up there this year, especially defending his title. And yeah, he's a great pick and a great driver to look at. And as it relates to Daytona this year. But there's so many guys, and like you said, there's just the magic of Daytona, where obviously luck plays a lot. But I mean, you look at the
Mhm.
last 3 winners with Stenhouse, Cindric in his rookie year, McDowell finally getting that win. Like a lot of these drivers, kind of in the mid pack to lower tier, are very talented super speedway drivers. Um,
Yeah.
so the competition level and just the nature and unpredictability of super speedway racing, of course, presents an opportunity for a lot of these guys. And I think that's why, you have like your Tony Stewarts, your Kyle Bushes, your Martin Truex
Mhm.
Juniors that just haven't broken through because, these smaller teams, they know that this type of racing presents their best opportunity to take home a checkered flag.
Mhm.
And it's all about avoiding the big one and making sure that you're there at the end. So,
Yeah.
like you said, Blaney's got an act for avoiding all of that trouble and being there at the end. Kyle Busch, in a little bit of a similar breath, even though he seems to get caught up in a lot of other people's business than not. But there's a lot of narrative here entering the 500, with a lot of these guys, certainly. But let's
And
move over.
I
Actually,
will
no, go
say,
ahead. Yeah, say
yeah,
it.
I will say one more when it comes to Daytona predictions. And, you think of favorites to win. But if you're looking for a surprise,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah, tell.
definitely, like, as like a fantasy money maker, if you want to go all out there, Riley Herbst for Rick Ware
Yes.
Racing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, this kid has fit into super speedway, that mold, like an old shoe. Like he was top 10 on debut in the 500 last year. He nearly won Talladega in the fall
Mm,
with that front row 36. I mean, in his first career race, to do that, to get a top 10 in the 500 last year, that was huge. And to me, he's a great underdog pick. He's always up there. He tends to qualify well, but with Rick Ware, he's probably going to be near the back. But he just has it. Some young guys come in and they just do tremendously well right away.
yeah.
He hasn't necessarily been great in Xfinity on a super speedways, but Cup, look out for him. I think he can really get maybe not the win, but he nearly won Dega, so maybe he can
Yeah.
get it. He just needs some help.
I love, dude. I love a flyer on Herbst because I'm a Riley Herbst truther. He's my dark horse to win the Xfinity Championship this year. I bet him at 20-1 to win the championship.
Hmm.
I think finally getting that win at Vegas after all those years of just disappointment, bad luck, whatever. I feel
Yeah.
like everything plagued that '98 team. I mean, four straight top four finishes to close the year out in
Hmm.
Xfinity. I love Herbst. I
Yeah.
I I love that as a flyer. If I was looking at another guy, I'm going to go to his teammate, Justin Haley. Justin
Totally.
Haley, we know how great of a super speedway racer he is, absolutely dominating in Xfinity. He's come close, and his numbers in Cup with Kaulig at Daytona, nothing really there, but
Mhm.
he's got the talent. And Rick Ware Racing, they seem to always find themselves at the end of these things because they hang
Mhm.
out and they just wait for all hell to break loose. So I would look at Justin Haley a little bit as well, as a driver to potentially shock and be there at the end to potentially challenge. But Herbst that's a deep pull.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what he can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But let's now talk about a fantasy play because Herbst, I mean, you said it. Herbst could be very interesting
Yeah.
here at Daytona for a fantasy play.
I don't know what his odds are, but
So his
yeah.
odds on DraftKings, he's 80-1 to win the race, but he's 10-1 to finish top five. That's really intriguing to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he finishes, and we're only looking for a top five. So 10-1, I'm gonna deeply consider. Actually, that's a nice
Mhm.
number.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm looking at Corey LaJoy here because
Mhm.
when you take a look at fantasy NASCAR, these super speedways, you're looking at drivers that you're not going to be using on a week to week basis because you have a certain number of uses for them during the regular season. You have 9 of them, and I'm looking at guys that finish, that avoid trouble, and that can get you stage points, that are going to run up front, but take care of the race car. And Corey LaJoy has been able to do that. Um, since joining Spire in 2021, he's finished 16th or better in the last 6 Daytona races, and he flirts with the front of the field.
Mhm.
And again, you talk about that continued growth with Spire. Um, I'm certainly going to be looking at LaJoy at Atlanta the following week as well. So he's a guy that kind of jumps out to me who has the experience, and has shown that he can be there at the end and get you some points. So for me, the guy that I'm looking at in fantasy is Corey LaJoy. But you're looking at your Michael McDowell's. Stenhouse is certainly interesting with what he could do, obviously, as the defending winner.
Mhm.
And I mean, even your front runners, like this is a spot where, Blaney certainly presents a great opportunity. Denny Hamlin, of course, presents a great opportunity. It's just about how you're going to approach the rest of the year, and be strategic with your uses. You want to take advantage of the guys that, again, they finish these races, they show the speed, and they show that they could be aggressive enough, but while taking care of the car.
Mhm.
But Corey LaJoy, Michael McDowell, those kind of C-tier drivers that you look at on a week-to-week basis, is kind of where I'm going to be putting my picks in my lineup. But what about you, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, one, as you said, it's Daytona. You can really pick most people and fit a good argument around them. But one that stood out to me, they just posted the entry list. But AJ Allmendinger is running it, and he's always somebody who's hated, you know, super speedway racing. He's always hated it, but he's good at it. He's gotten good finishes. You look at Xfinity, with his run-ins with Daytona and Dega. Um, and even in Cup, he got a really solid finish last year, and he has a handful of top fives. A few came in the 500 throughout his career, and he's at a unique place in his career, right? He's going back to Xfinity, and he can
Love it.
definitely going to be running for the title there.
Yeah.
But he's kind of hitting Cup here and there. But I think just where he is and just what he's shown, like he's able to avoid the melee that happens, and um, he I thought he was in a great position to win Atlanta last year before the rain came. He just had to pull that one block at Byron. For some reason he
Mhm.
let him by, and then the rain came, or they wrecked, and then the rain came, and you're like, man, if you just block them one time. But like those are the situations that happen, and you need a driver like him to get it done. And I thought last year was a great chance for him to win the 500. I can't imagine the celebration.
Whew,
He's a
man,
he's a fascinating partier,
he
and
is.
just what he does on the start finish line. He doesn't smash a melon to the ground, but he's a very tiny dude, and I never forget being in Victory Lane at Watkins Glen in 2014, and Brad Doherty.
Uh,
I interviewed the dude. He's freaking, I don't know what his height is, almost 7 foot. And he just picks up AJ like a little baby and just tosses him in the air. His feet are up in
oh,
the air.
that's classic, dude.
But like Matt Collig, he's a tall guy, so he would,
Yeah.
he did that to him for Xfinity win. So I think he would be a good guy to put a little bit of a bet on.
Yeah, AJ, man, I love too. And I feel like his super speedway, what he could do on super speedways just goes completely under the rug because all we do is talk about how good he is on road courses. For those of you that don't know, I host the NASCAR Xfinity betting preview show with the NASCAR betting preview show umbrella. And I'm big on AJ Allmendinger this year, and that's why I love Riley Herbst as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I think AJ presents the biggest challenge to Austin Hill on super speedways in Xfinity. And he's proven that he can run up front and again avoid the trouble. But and I like that you go to AJ as well because he is a part-time guy. He's not going to be in the field every single week. And you're kind of looking at those spots where you can use him. I think Daytona certainly presents a great opportunity to get a little bit out of AJ, in your fantasy lineup because he was
Mm-hmm.
so close last year, and he's a very talented super speedway racer. I think that's a good lean on your end, but certainly a lot of flexibility. Again, you gotta have some luck. You gotta have some luck on your side here for these guys, and hope that they can get the job done. But
Yeah.
regardless, I like the play. I like the play. Now to close up shop, let's talk a little bit more about some of the bets here. I'm going to give you my favorite outright that I like on the board before qualifying. The thing that you gotta know about super speedway racing is that it is unpredictable. There's so many variables to consider when placing your bets. It gives you a lot of opportunity to bet small because the numbers are so much longer, right? And you don't know
Mm-hmm.
who's really gonna come out and pop off, right? You're not putting a mortgage on these guys by any means.
Mm-hmm.
So before practice and qualifying, I'm looking at drivers that are 20-1 and longer. And we're using odds on DraftKings Sportsbook here. So a driver that kind of jumped out to me that was longer than 20-1 is Martin Truex Jr. And I've got Martin Truex Jr. at plus 2,800 to win the 500. And I'll tell you why. Like, of the drivers that haven't won, I know that I talked about Kyle Busch as a driver to watch, just because of the sheer magnitude of what winning the 500 would be for his career. I know it's the same for
Mm-hmm.
all these guys, but Kyle Busch and just his name in the NASCAR history books is certainly elevated more than Truex or Keselowski.
Mm-hmm.
But look, Truex is making his 20th start in the Great American Race. If you're a believer in, good juju, storyline driven narratives, we know what happened the last time a driver went 20 years of trying. Yeah, spoiler alert, it was Dale Earnhardt, and he finally did it. Martin Truex Jr. could be that guy. And I think that there's upside in this number when you look at his performances in the next gen car at Daytona, because his results haven't been there necessarily, but in terms of what he can do during the race, it's pretty strong. He's got the
Mm-hmm.
fourth best average finish, the fourth best average running position in the
Mm-hmm.
next gen era. He's got the seventh best driver rating as well. And
Mm-hmm.
if this is Truex's swan song of a season, what better way to kick it off than finally getting that elusive super speedway win at the Super Bowl of stock car racing? He's just got to avoid the bad luck. And Toyota, I mean, Denny Hamlin loves winning at Daytona. Toyota, they have been fast. Bubba Wallace is always fast. I think
Mm-hmm.
his number has shrunk too much for me at this point in time. He's 18-1 now on DraftKings, and I mean, it's a number you probably should still get because I think that 23 team could potentially pull and start on the front row at the very least. But I like Truex at 28-1. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
look at some of these other drivers that are priced in his range. You got Austin Cindric. You have, or I'm sorry, that's the wrong market. Here we go. Mark Truex. Eric Jones is there. Christopher Bell is there.
Mm.
Uh, some of those guys, I would prefer Truex with his
I would
experience
too.
and everything that he brings.
Yeah.
And again, I think that he presents the best opportunity here, kind of early on. And, all the talks are about his retirement. But I think if he's able to avoid trouble, if he's able to keep that car clean, he's got as good a shot as anybody to potentially get his first Daytona 500.
Yeah. And we know he's come as close as possible. You think of 2016, just down to just luck at that point. Just when you're side by side with each other, who's just happened to be ahead when they cross the line, and that just sets off a whole different career in terms of just getting certain victories that you may never get again. And we know Denny ended up winning, 2 other times since then. But I definitely I like looking at guys who have that aggression to put it all out there. And perhaps that's one reason why Martin hasn't had it done.
Mm,
Because we know, you always look at 2018, right? When he and Joey had that run in at Martinsville. He won the battle. He ain't going to win the damn war.
right.
Well, 2 weeks later at Homestead, Joey just passes right by him, and he just lets him
Wins the
win.
damn war.
He let him win the war. He put
Yeah.
up the white flag. So, that's just one situation. But I think that's why I always end up looking at a Logano or a Hamlin, because I know when they get up front, they are just pains in everyone's asses. They can't pass them. They're not afraid to block. They're not afraid to loosen up the rear end of your car and just put people in difficult situations, because they know that's what's going to keep them up front. It's so easy to get stuck in the middle, to lose the outside lane and just get trained all the way to the back. Denny, I was looking at numbers. He had an amazing hot streak from 2014 to 2021, 8 years, 7 top fives in the Daytona 500.
Crazy, man.
Remarkable, incredible. And 3 of those, almost half of them are wins. And Joey's led the last 10 races at Daytona. Not hot on the finishes, but his results tend to come in February. 6 finishes of 6th or better since he won it in 2015. So you got to have that aggression as well, and that's really what, when you're looking at numbers that are this close in a race that is so inherently unpredictable, you got to look at the driver behind the wheel, which always aims me towards a Denny or a Joey.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, those guys, they're always up front and they know how to stay there. So I don't see any I don't see any reason why, those guys can't do it again. And certainly a couple of the favorites. But still, they present a great opportunity as well. Regardless, it's going to be a fun event. The weather is definitely looking a little better as the days go on.
Keep saying that.
We will look. We got to manifest something here, dude.
We do.
We have to, because NASCAR season's back and Mother Nature is not playing nice again. But let's get a little bit of a change here and get some good manifestation. But Zach, you're going to be down in Daytona, up in the stands. So why don't you kind of just give the viewers, the listeners here, a little bit of an idea of what you're going to be doing, boots on the ground at Daytona this weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely not in the realm that I'm used to. I think I've covered 7 of the last Daytona 500s, and this year I'm going to be covering, at least from the stands. I've never attended a 500. I've only been in the media down in the inside. So unique experience. I know 2021, which was that was like the COVID Daytona 500, since 2020 was in February, and that was I had to cover it from the stands. And Daytona Rising, which is what the whole Coliseum, if you would call it there, it's remarkable just what they built. I mean, they had to take into account the curvature of the earth when they built it, because it was just so wide and so massive. And everything they've put together there is incredible. It's a sold out crowd. A lot of big names are showing up, and it's just that and the Indy 500 just go hand in hand as just the greatest events that I've ever seen. Just the energy is just overwhelming, because everybody's there. A lot of people who maybe don't follow the sport, but it's just, we see it at the Super Bowl, right? A lot of people show up and watch. They don't know about the game. They're just watching for the event. And Daytona is NASCAR's event. And we kind of lost, some fuel with the clash, ways that NASCAR couldn't control. Definitely hope it doesn't rain again. I'm gonna have to change my flight around for Monday morning, but I've done that before. Have to do it again. But for the
Just
sake of
part
the
of it.
sport, yes, for the sake of the sport, I want it to be a clean and dry Sunday afternoon, because I think we're in for a tremendous race. I love the next gen car on the super speedways. It definitely lends itself to a lot of side by side, three wide strategy plays, and we just named the entire field. I think
Yeah.
throughout this whole show on who can win. So I'm very excited for the weekend. It's gonna be a great race.
Yeah, man. Great deal. I'm excited for you. I've have yet to get down to Daytona, but hopefully over the next couple of years I'll be able to get down there and, feel the whole experience and see the spectacle that is, the greatest race in or one of the in motorsports, at least for NASCAR. It's our Super Bowl, and definitely want to, get down there at some point soon and see what it's all about. But good stuff, man. I think that's going to cap the first episode here. We went long, but that's all. But dude, that's all right, because we had a lot of really good stuff to talk
Yeah.
about. And again, we're going to be fine tuning this. We're going to be, it's going to be a work in progress for sure. But everybody's going to be along for the ride, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of we can do here to keep this dynamic, and just keep talking shop about greatest American motorsport that's out there. So. Zach, I appreciate you. Before we go, just kind of let the people know where they can find you, what they can expect from you kind of over the next week before we talk again.
Yeah, not much of a social media guy. Do Instagram a little bit. Zach Catanzareti on Instagram. Got it spelt out for you right there. Of course, doing my work with NBC Sports and all the the features that I've produced last year going into 2024. All the extended highlights that are, if you ever missed the race, try giving all the best moments that happen. Then all the interview series and everything coming this year. It's going to be really exciting. I'm hoping to be on the grid a lot more this year. I'm hoping to cover more races like I used to. It just gives us so many opportunities to bring all the action and everything that happens, bring it to the people who aren't as fortunate, who maybe live far away, or they're just not able to financially get it together to show up. That's our job. That's why we're talking about it right now, and that's why the NBC side and everybody. That's why we do what we do. So really excited for all that work to come and to show it to everybody. We're a lucky duo here in what we get to do.
We are. We truly are. And we're definitely taking advantage of that for sure. You and I, but all good stuff. Definitely check out what's coming out on the NASCAR NBC side, Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel, NBCsports.com. That's Zach and I's home. I working on the news desk, Zach doing everything on the video side. So we kind of work in tandem, and are going to be this year. So it's a lot of fun to finally be, kind of doing this show together. And kind of see where it goes. But as far as myself, you can follow me on Twitter at MV Bachmann, the handle right there, as you can see. I also, as I mentioned, host a betting show on the NASCAR Xfinity series. So I'm still waiting for Daytona odds on Xfinity. These sports books, man, they got it. I mean, the entry lists are out. Let's get them. Let's get them. I want to sit down. I want to break down Daytona for Xfinity. But check out the NASCAR betting preview show at NASCAR BPS on Twitter. We got podcasts for trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. A live show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern during the NASCAR Cup Series on Twitter and YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, like I mentioned, everything coming out of NBC Sports and the NASCAR property there, and just motorsports in general. We're all systems go here, man. It's going to be a big year, and I'm excited to break down the race weekends and talk shop with you this year. So all good stuff. But Zach, have fun in Daytona.
Thanks, man.
I'm sure I'll be hearing from you, and hope you get some good stuff out there and enjoy the fan atmosphere aspect of it. And we'll be back next week to talk break down Daytona, head into another super speedway in Atlanta. Just an absolute 1-2 punch to start the year. It's friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
But Atlanta's going to be a lot of fun. So cannot wait to break that race down. And yeah, we hope you guys are ready for the ride here. So stay connected, and we'll talk to you next week.